big ball. Going for the big shot, and he hits it.
That's batted into the air, intercepted, and the Bears are going to win it.
So the Bears have a lot going for them, and when I mean a lot, I mean that they brought back Chris Williams today. Obviously, one of the tender tags there. There are also certain receivers that we're not going to name at a couple D3 schools in the area that are working out for the Bears. The Bears are bringing in some of these wide receivers to Halas Hall. Isaiah Bond's one of them. Dante Fleming from Tulane is another one that they are bringing in for a top 30 visit. Nick, I don't know about you, but where do we go from here, by the way? And I realize I just botched the opening, but whatever. Dude, where do we go with all this?
No, let's talk about the biggest news, and this came across my timeline. Not sure if it's true or not. Maurice Alexander is going to wear number 13. So that means Caleb's going to keep number 18, which the favorite part for me, selfishly, is my license plate doesn't have to change from Caleb 18.
Yeah, that is a good point. By the way, this is the Halas Beat brought to you by the Bear Report. I'm Usayd Koshul. He's Nick Whalen. You can follow us on Twitter at Usayd Koshul _Nick Whalen. People, we have a lot of really good stuff for you guys today. We're going to get into the Bears depth chart. We're going to get into a lot of draft scenarios. Nick and I ran about 12 of these over the weekend. And Nick and I cannot pick our favorite ones. We could probably tell you our least favorite ones. But, dude, let's just you put a depth chart together for offense and defense. I mean, they have 41 free agents right now, 23 guys that are signed. So first off, I think something has to be said. The way Ryan Poles likes to build this roster is the very bottom of the roster. He likes to churn out every single year, right? And I think that was true for the Matt Eberflus era because obviously you're getting out of the first couple of years, you're kind of getting out of that Ryan Pace roster hell. And then now all of a sudden going into his fourth season, he brings in Ben Johnson. You would hope that there would have been some consistency to where they could just add to this roster. But it's now they're churning it again with Jonah Jackson, Joe Tooney, Drew Dahlman. You don't know who's really going to be tight end two beyond Durham Smythe's the guy right now, but then you've got DeAndre Swift, Roschon Johnson. So, what is even happening here? What direction do the Bears go?
Yeah, and the reason we're doing this, y'all, is as I thought it'd be a fun exercise to kind of zoom out a little bit and to look at the 2026 Bears depth chart, and that's what Usayd's referencing, what we're looking at. So in 2026, and again, this doesn't include the draft picks that they're going to have later this month, obviously, and it doesn't include anyone that's a free agent. So that includes unrestricted, restricted, exclusive rights, which means a lot of those guys are likely to come back because no one else can sign them, or they're going to sign them and they would have to have the right to match. But still, it really makes you look at the really bare bones of the roster. And so I'll go through it as quick as possible. These are guys under contract for 2026 and potentially beyond. So Caleb is the only quarterback. Swift and Roschon Johnson are the only two running backs. DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, Tyler Scott for receivers. Cole Kmet for tight end. Darnell Wright, Karana Magaji for tackles. Jonah Jackson for guard. Remember, they haven't extended Joe Tooney yet. Drew Dahlman for center. That's offense. Defense, Montez Sweat, Dio Odengbo, Austin Booker, Jervon Dexter, Grady Jarrett, Zach Pickens. We forget about Zach Pickens. He's still churning there at the bottom of the roster. Tremaine Edmonds, Noah Sewell, Jalen Johnson, Tyreek Stevenson, Terrell Smith, and can't forget Torrey Taylor. Is Cairo a free agent? I guess I didn't look in depth on that one.
Well, yeah, I believe he will be a free agent because I think it was in 2021 where he signed that 4-year deal. So he is going to be
either one. But 41 free agents for sure, and then it's either 23 or 24 that are signed, which makes it a very that's half of actually a little bit more than your 53. No, less than half of your 53. So really, you could be turning over a lot more of your roster in another year.
And okay, so to me, this conversation is kind of maddening, but also really sort of interesting to have because, again, you would have hoped that next year is going to be Caleb Williams' third season, that the Bears finally have kind of added the finishing touches to this, but also keep in mind, okay, so you're sitting here right now, I've got 23 guys signed. With the hopefully 7 draft picks that are coming later this month. That is going up to 31 signed, I believe, with you adding Cairo Santos to the list here.
Yeah, sorry. He is signed, y'all. I failed you.
You're good. No, you're good. I mean, the thing is, you're going to 31 or 32 guys signed, right? And obviously, they're going to have 90 guys. Now, next year, the Bears, the good news is that they have for the most part, a full trove of draft picks. Part of me kind of wonders if the Bears are looking at this cupboard right now and they're saying, okay, well, we know for a fact that we need to add another receiver. So we know for a fact that adding some more behind Dahlman and Jackson, because again, both those guys are here for the foreseeable future, that has to happen as well. And then you look at the defensive side of the ball. Well, to me, just luckily projecting here, TJ Edwards, extension candidate, Kyler Gordon, extension candidate. Those are two that I think if you're the Bears, you're looking at next year, you want to go ahead and get done early. And again, the reason we're referencing all this right now is because later on in the show, we're going to get to some simulations where the 12 that I ran, I had the Bears selecting some corners, because you don't know what's going to happen with Kyler Gordon. I had them taking a linebacker as well because you don't know what's going to happen with TJ Edwards.
Well, and Tremaine Edmonds too, which they could release. The other thing that's interesting about this depth chart, y'all, for 2026, they don't have a safety signed. Not one. Kevin Byard's a free agent. Jonathan Owens is a free agent. Jaquan Brisker's a free agent. Elijah Hicks is a free agent. So they don't have a guy under contract.
And I should also mention, you kind of look at this. So one of the big things that I feel like has to be brought up is that DeAndre Swift signed a 3-year, $24 million deal back in 2024. It was like the first contract of free agency. Yes, he's under contract through 2026, but it's also just like the Bears could very well decide that, hey, we're going to make him a June 1st cut, save $7.5 million, and then accrue just $1.3 million in dead money. And so if you all of a sudden start to play sort of addition by subtraction, to me, the conversation gets really interesting because all of a sudden you're going from, oh, well, DeAndre Swift's under contract, but also the Bears have like $10 million in cap space right now. Yeah, some of it's going to roll over. They should have about 15 to 18 million next year. But if they really want to get flexible, then they're going to have to move on from guys like Swift. And Cole Kmet's another one where his salary is not guaranteed after June 1st next year. So they could save another 10 million cutting him.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that the guaranteed money is all that really matters, y'all. And you can be more flexible with getting rid of more guys if needed. Again, that could be bad play, that could be injuries, that could be your drafting replacements in this draft. Also, hey, like who knows what happens, and you're going to extend guys and restructure things. Like these contracts are very fluid both ways, but that's kind of a fun way to kind of look at the depth chart and to see that, hey, there's actually going to be spots for guys to make this roster that are beyond just 1-year contracts for these. And again, roughly these draft picks are going to be all 4-year deals. The other one that I think that's interesting, we have to talk about as we're getting the depth chart before we get to the scenarios, is the Bears signed Case Keenum, which I think we should talk about before we get into the scenarios. Case Keenum, I think his biggest moment for me personally is the play to Stephon Diggs to beat the Saints in the playoff game, which was crazy. I feel bad for Marcus Williams who misplayed that one as a rookie safety for the Saints. But that was probably the biggest one. He led, the Vikings on a really good season and a run. He's had a solid career, but a lot of people are very pro that move, despite having Tyson Bagent, because it's a veteran presence to help teach Caleb the game of being a pro and reading defenses.
And you know who was the Saints D coordinator for that game?
I know.
Dennis Allen. No, it's interesting because I didn't think of that, and then you would kind of brought it up. But no, see, okay, so I like the Case Keenum signing because you're getting a guy that, number one, was pretty prolific as a NCAA player back in college, way back in the day, about 2 decades ago at this point, not too long ago. But then you're also getting a guy who has seen so much around the league that I think he understands the evolution of the modern rookie quarterback, where it's like he was.
Sorry. Could we have to give a shout out though? We're recording this one on Monday, y'all. It's 7:22, okay, Central Time. Case Keenum went to Houston. Houston's in a pretty big game tonight. Usayd.
Yeah.
Who are you picking in this game tonight? This is we don't even know yet. Who are you picking?
Honestly, man, I was so busy this year. I did not do a bracket. Like,
it's Houston or Florida. You get to pick one.
yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Houston here. I feel like they are gonna come out and play as the better team because the coach in me is sitting there watching on Saturday. Saturday night and watching that game.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole time I thought to myself, I'm like, Duke won because of, which we got plenty of time, so we'll get into this. But Duke won because they had the star power, right? Like that's traditionally always been the case with the Duke teams. But some of these teams that have kind of come through Duke over the last couple of years have won has been because number one, they execute in the most critical moments. Number two, those teams play like actual teams. You know, like I don't know if our guy Zach he'd appreciate this. He is a big UNC fan. So I'm sure he's going for Houston as well. But, you know, I'm going for Houston, man. I just think that there's going to be something really cool about Kelvin Sampson getting that national championship. Plus, it's hard to root against a story like Houston, right? Where they were like up and down, up and down. With Duke, Kentucky, Kansas, I will throw UNC in there as well. Although I like UNC more than the other three. The thing is, Duke, Kentucky, Kansas are kind of three programs traditionally that have always dominated college basketball. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying I hate them, but if someone's playing against them, I'm probably going to go for the other team.
Yeah, no, I get it. I'll go the other way just so we can have a little rivalry here. I do think Florida's going to win, by the way. Couple things. You're going to apparently just team up with Case Keenum in his school and who he's rooting for. I'll team up with Jervon Dexter. You know, it's cool. He lost some weight. We can talk about that in a bit. A big Walter Clayton Jr. fan. He's been on fire, y'all. And first name Walter, you know, pretty good thing for the franchise. So I'll go with Florida. So speaking of Jervon Dexter.
Hey, Walter Clayton, Walter Payton. Sorry to...
I know, man. I know.
You know,
Jervon Dexter looks thin, Usayd.
Yeah, so Jervon's
thin.
Yeah, his evolution is so interesting, right? Because I saw the picture, and you know, one of the things that I love to do is I have a list of guys, you know, when they reported, like, if you look at Jervon Dexter's, and I'm saying like when they ended up getting to Halas on the league, like if you look at Jervon Dexter, he was 6'6", 310 during the draft, okay? And then you ultimately look at the Bears and their current roster. Like, I could tell that he had slimmed down a significant amount, you know, from rookie to sophomore season. And again, the reason that I saw that is because it's like I remember one night after that big win against the Panthers, you saw Jervon Dexter basically like being this big guy. You could tell that the reason they put him at nose tackle is because he was this big stout presence in the middle. And then obviously now, you know, he's played 1 tech and 3 tech, you know, he's really kind of slimmed down. But The big thing really though is I think people realize like he showed up to Halas Hall last offseason, lost like 10 to 15 pounds, I think he said, then rebuilt himself back up to the point where he's still 6'6", 312 now, only 2 pounds heavier than his draft weight. Now, when we get the official measurements, you know, in the spring and the summer and all that, and we're really going to see like maybe Jervon Dexter, whose arm length was 32.25 inch with 9.5 inch hands. Maybe the Bears have big plans for him at pass rusher.
Yeah, maybe. He's a very interesting guy because he's so talented. Either way, I don't see him as a nose tackle anymore. I see him more as a 3 tech. So I think that gives us a need at 1 tech because Grady Jarrett and Jervon Dexter are both 3 techs in my mind. They could play 1 tech, but it's not where they're ideal. But you have Billings, and I'm assuming they're going to acquire a guy as the 1 tech. But one thing happened today too. Chris Williams signed his tender. I was hoping that they were going to remove the tender and they could save, I think, about $2.5 million. So he's back in Chicago. Let's get into these scenarios, man, because that leads into a little bit of this of like where guys are going to go and, you know, how things are going to fall here. I looked at these and I told you before we aired, I have a favorite one. I finally figured it out. It took a long time because I mean, again, y'all, what he did is he went through 12 different scenarios and like 6 different websites you used or something. And it's the first 4 picks for the Bears. And I was like, man, which one of these 4 is my favorite? So I'll let you go through it, man.
So, okay, here is the thing. All right, now I should mention here. All right, some of these come from. We're actually gonna do a little bit of a screen share here, just to kind of show you guys. What we're thinking here, especially if you're checking this thing out on YouTube. Apologies about our faces going off the side, but so here is the deal. Okay, I went through and I did about 15 to 16 different scenarios. Okay, some of these, as you guys can see, I kind of just pulled directly from certain mock drafts like Pro Football Focus, PFN, 33rd Team. I know The Athletic came out with one, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to revisit this conversation in a few weeks here. The 12, though, that I kind of did myself, okay, I said, what are the Bears' first 4 picks looking like? And again, we'll scroll back up to the top 3, the first 3, to kind of give you guys a opportunity to really see, all right, well, if the top 10 shakes out like this, what are the Bears thinking? Now, I start to kind of look at these first 4 here, dude, and I'm curious to know, okay? I will be honest with you. Simulation 1, 3, and 4, I could see the Bears totally going for. The thing that I'm worried about when it comes to Simulation 2 is that, number one, it's going to light, a lot of Bears fans on fire, but honestly, who cares? The second thing is does this team really, what is a deep tight end class? Like, if you can get Mason Taylor at 72, as we've seen right here in the 4th scenario, do you really take Tyler Warren at number 10 overall like we've done in the 2nd simulation? So I am curious to know, dude, like, first 4, what do you think?
Yeah, so first, okay, I have to tell you, I told you this tweet before we started, okay? I think that's going to lead into this. So this is my pinned tweet, y'all. If you follow me on Twitter, and if not, I'm not offended, okay? But I said that the free agency put me in this different mood for the Bears' 10th pick, okay? We're going through deeper than that, and it's going to lead into this discussion. So here are the 4 moods, okay? I'm happy, I'm fine, I'm okay, and I'm mad. Okay. I would be mad if they went quarterback or linebacker at 10 overall. I'd be okay if they went Shamar Stewart, Omari, and Hampton. I don't think either are worth the 10th pick. And I'm not a big fan of Shamar Stewart, but I understand the position, right? Omari and Hampton I don't think is a bad player. I just think they could get a better running back later. Fine draft picks, and one of these is one of them. I have O-line, Malachi Starks, Colston Loveland, Kenneth Grant, Michael Williams, Donovan Ezeraku, Ted McMillan. I'd be fine with those picks. And then happy, which is 3 of these. Trading down, Ashton Genty is 2 of these. Will Johnson, Tyler Warren, Mason Graham, Mike Green. I don't have Armand Membu in there. Add him in there, make me happy too. So, and again, like overall, that's just where I'm at. Like, because the Bears are like, we're good. We're just adding like bonuses at this point because our team is so good. Those right there. The one that would bother me the most is the Tyler Warren one, okay? And here's why. One, I don't think Greg Zabel falls that far. But at this point, I'm just looking at percentages of guys hitting, okay? I like Tyler Warren, the player. I've tweeted about it a bunch. Historically, if we look at tight ends, they don't do well. You want to go through the Kyle Pittses and the OJ Howards and
David
Evan Ingram was the top 10 pick. Like, yeah, Njoku. Like, you go through the list, man. The amount of tight ends that have hit have basically been Hawkinson, Brock Bowers. Other than that, they've rarely lived up to the hype, and this is historically. And so, I like Tyler Warren. I like Colston Loveland. I said I would be happy, right? I put that in my tweet. But if I had to put percentages to it, the percentages of him hitting versus Ashton Genty, who I know we talked about the running backs in our last episode, man. Ashton Genty's the short gains that he does, he just makes extra yardage because he takes on half a defender, moves his body. So of those 4, my favorite right now would probably be number 1. Josh Simmons, I think, is, I don't know if he'll fall to 39, but he's probably the best left tackle pure prospect. Tyleik Williams, I like a ton for a 1 technique D tackle, which we just talked about as a need with Dexter being a 3 tech. And I'll let you talk about Carson, man, because you are a big fan of him as a linebacker, which is a need as we just look through the depth charts.
Yeah, okay, full disclosure here. I was running these simulations and not like I was sitting there picking, and we've got 12 of these to go through, but it's not like I was sitting there and picking like, oh, Genty, Simmons, Williams, Schweschinger, right? I kind of let the mock draft simulator do its thing. So if you see, a player where they're not supposed to be and you're like, what the hell? Why is Gray's Abel falling all the way to 39th overall? The answer is because when you use different simulators, what happens is outside of the first round, they tend to have players ranked all over the place. Okay. Mm-hmm. But okay, so talking Carson Schweschinger here. Now, he is a pretty solid athlete, right? You see a player who is a lot like an upgraded version of Nick Kwiatkowski, who was drafted by the Bears in 2018, right? So you're getting a guy that is tough, scrappy, blue collar. You're getting a guy who loves to just put his head down and work. He is not going to be the fastest guy on the field, but he definitely can read and react. He's a guy that's going to be aggressive. It's interesting because as a linebacker, as physical as linebackers are asked to be, to me, there's a couple things that make up the ideal linebacker. As a linebacker, if you have really good eyes, you have really good feet. Okay, You can go ahead and you can be a damn good player. Now, that means that your eyes always need to you have to see the entire field. There's a reason that the linebacker is called the quarterback of the defense, and that is simply because as a linebacker, you got to see the whole field. You got to know where the ball is going. You got to know what the guards are doing, okay? Because if the guards get back into pass pro, it's a pass play. If they're heavy on their hands, most of the time, it is a run play because, again, low man wins. So Schweschinger, I think, even though he's only a one-year starter, not necessarily this sort of freak athlete, he does sort of embody what Ryan Poles and Ian Cunningham look for, which is just a TJ Edwards type player, right? Not the greatest athlete, like I've mentioned twice now, but tough, scrappy, going to come in, put his head down, freaking work, want to get better. Obviously, he's not as flexible at the hips as you would like him to be, which is going to kind of be one of the things that pushes him down the board. But you're still getting a player with a really high motor that I fully believe has a shot to really be damn good at the next level. And again, let's be honest, you're scrolling down to our Bears depth chart, like Tremaine Edmonds is under contract next season. So picking Schweschinger at 72, I hope I'm saying that correctly, picking him at 72, here's the reality of it for me, is that you don't need to start him right away, honestly. I think he's a more athletic version of Jack Sanborn. He can sit for a year. He can play, 50 to 60% of snaps as a rookie, marinate, and then all of a sudden be ready to take over that job in 2026.
Well, from what I remember, he's a guy that's only started basically 1 year of college. So I think his best football is in front of him. The more, you're talking about the more experience he gets, the better his eyes and feet will get. But the instincts that we've seen from only 1 year of ball is why he's a prospect. I've seen him as high as the second round. So getting him at 72, I think would be a steal. So just for these first four simulations, do you have a favorite and do you have a least favorite?
Okay, so I would say this, right? I think as much as I love Tyler Warren and Gray's Zabel, my least favorite is going to be Simulation 2. And the reason for that is just because I look at Hampton and Sawyer. And again, Hampton's a very polarizing prospect among fans just because, some people say, oh, first round pick, end of first round pick. Some people say, hell no, stay away from him and take Caleb Johnson or Travion Henderson at that spot. Now, Jack Sawyer, to me, I really like the Ohio State guys, which if you've noticed the trend here, the first four sims have 3 Ohio State guys in there. Ohio State is probably sending its most talented draft class in a damn long time to the draft. This is going back to the Joey Bosa, Marshawn Lattimore, Chase Young draft days. Like, this is a pretty solid draft class with the potential. But then I'm also wary of the fact that it's like Jack Sawyer and JT Tolomolu, right? So Tolomolu's Ohio State as well.
Yep.
The big thing Jack Sawyer is I'm not necessarily sure. I see him as being a Sam Hubbard, basically. Again, third round pick in 2018. I really wanted him, but nope. All right. I see Jack Sawyer as being a Sam Hubbard type, but I see him being a Sam Hubbard light. Okay. So if he doesn't hit, all of a sudden you kind of spent the 72nd overall pick on an edge rusher that you thought was going to hit, but ended up basically being a bust of a prospect. Like Hampton and Sawyer.
He struggles bending too,
Exactly.
It's a low ceiling. It's a low ceiling play.
And Hampton and Sawyer, to me, I hate using this term, but they seem to be very boom or bust prospects, honestly. Like, they're either going to pop off or they're going to be like, nope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not as high on Hampton. I know that's, a lot of people aren't fans of that one. I don't think he's bad, but he's in that group of a lot of running backs for me that I could just wait and get them later on in the draft. The Sim 4 is interesting to me because Tyler Booker. I really don't see them going guard, pure guard. Like Zabel, I would prefer because he can play more spots than Booker. Booker, I think, is a better guard than Zabel would be as a guard. In a power scheme, I think Zabel will be better in the zone scheme. So I think a lot of this is landing fit too. I would prefer Landon Jackson to Sawyer or Tuilamola, who you're talking about in terms of a DN. So kind of putting them together, I think my favorite one is Sim 1, then I'll go 3, then I'll go 4, then I'll go 2.
Yeah, and here's the deal. So Sim 1 to me is the one that you look at and you're like, if you're going to get 3 starters within the first 42 picks, like, I don't think anyone's going to be mad there. And then another high upside prospect, like so teams have on average, like, whatever, 6 or 7 draft picks a year. You get 4 starters out of that. Like, that's pretty damn good draft right there. Like, that's the type of draft class that has the potential to take your roster from being good, which I believe this year's roster is right now and is going to be after the draft, to really freaking great. It's a very high potential roster.
Well, the reason why is if you do something like that one, you're saving so much cap space because those guys are starters. Then you have to pay $20 million to someone else because if you have 4 spots, let's say an average starter at any position, we're averaging them together, is let's say $12 million, right? So that's $48 million, and you're probably spending, let's say 10. You're saving $38 million, so you can repurpose that somewhere else. So yeah, I think it's a really big advantage. That's why you see teams with really good classes, like the Saints had one when that Alvin Kamara, Marshawn Lattimore one that you'd referenced, Trey Hendrickson. That class helped carry them for years because it saved them some money. So do you want to go to the next 4 simulations?
Yeah, and I will say, so Landon Jackson's like 6'7", 6'8". We talk all the time about freaking length. I mean, quite frankly, I'd be excited to see what he'd do in Dennis Allen's defense. Okay, so this thing right here is interesting to me, right? Because the simulator here decided to do a little bit of a favor to us and start talking about prospects that maybe should be getting more attention but are not getting enough attention, okay? I will be honest, dude. I mean, I know you and I have had our disagreements about Will Johnson. I'm willing to give Tyree Stevenson the benefit of the doubt, but if they take Will Johnson, I would not be mad. Walter Nolan's a guy that has been pretty freaking good. Same with Travion Henderson. And then Isaiah Bond, okay? Now, I will say of this 4, I mean, Xavier Watts, again, is in your backyard because he's, again, at Notre Dame. Lathan Ransom is in the same region because he's Ohio State. Harold Fannin Jr., yeah, he's 6'3", 6'4". So he's not as big as some of these other tight ends like Mason Taylor or Gunnar Helm, both guys that are like 6'5", 6'6". Not as explosive as a receiver as Loveland or Warren are, but he wouldn't be my first choice at tight end, would not be my last choice either. And then obviously, Michael Williams and Kenneth Grant, the 2 wild cards to me.
Yeah. This group of 4 is very tough for me. And again, this is interesting. This actually is a good exercise because I think it's going to make me retweet out my happy, fine, okay, because it's really making me make a decision here. My least favorite, again, is 7, which is Tyler Warren, Josh Simmons, even though I like them and Watts, because I'm looking at premium positions, right? My favorite of these 4 is going to just knock people off their table because of how I've been. It's probably the Will Campbell one because I'm so high on Mike Green. I really like Walter Nolan. And to me, that's I think of Will Campbell as a guard. Okay. So it's fine. Let's just say he's a guard. I know some people like him at tackle. I call him a guard. He's a guard. Mike Green's my second best pass rusher. I get him at 39. Walter Nolan is, I would say, the second or third best 3 tech in this draft. I get him at 41. Adding that, and I haven't looked big into Ransom in terms of the safety. I know of him. I haven't studied him yet. But those 3, and again, my next group from this is, even though I don't love the guy, again, same scenario, is Sim 8. I'm not a big Michael Williams fan, but Kenneth Grant, I think as a one tech shouldn't be there in round 2. And I love Watts. And Bond's okay. Bond's okay. I think for a wide receiver 3 type for what he could be, but I think that changes things. And then I would have Sim 5, and mainly because that includes a running back, which is a lower premium position. So I like Will Johnson. We talked about this. I like him a lot. I like Walter Nolan. I referenced earlier, Jervon Henderson. So to me, I would go 6, 8, 5, 7, but it's tight. So it makes me think I'm actually not as big of a Tyler Warren as I like, because I haven't picked him in either of these 2 sets of 4 yet. It's my favorite one.
Yeah, and so I want to go ahead and say something, okay? So just doing some research here, kind of connecting the dots, all right? So Lathan Ransom, again, safety from Ohio State, not necessarily labeled as a top-tier safety. You know, he is, to me, a tier 2 below guys like Xavier Watts, as well as Imarue from Texas A&M, I believe, and then Malachi Starks, who we will get to in just a moment here. But again,
Imaware?
Imaware, yes.
South Carolina.
South Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, super athletic, but like I think he's a better athlete than he is a football player right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, and so I will say this: the A&M South Carolina colors are very similar, so I kind of got that.
Oh, that's
up.
right.
So here's my thing with Lathan Ransom. All right, so you're getting a guy that is a pretty experienced starter. You're getting a guy that I think has all the intangibles needed in terms of the athleticism. I would say he's a notch below Jaquan Brisker. Okay. Now we also know though that Lathan Ransom is 6'1", I believe, pushing that about 206 pounds. I mean, he is a pretty physical player. Okay. The other big thing that I think is worth noting is that Dennis Allen loves his Ohio State safeties, right? He loves a lot of his Big Ten safeties. I mean, you look at some of these Saints players that are in the league, and Von Bell, they drafted back in 2016, as a 6th-round pick, went on to have a pretty successful career. And then you look at some of the other Ohio State guys that were drafted by the Saints, and it's like, he loves his pretty lengthy DBs. Lathan Ransom has about 30-inch arms, which I would say is not the greatest, but pretty solid for a safety. And so Lathan Ransom kind of enters the conversation as a guy that I look at and I'm like, all right, well, is he ever going to be the type of player that's like a true quote-unquote game changer? Not really. You certainly hope he develops into that. But I think the potential enough is there for him to basically be the type of player that can be a solid safety presence. Which, again, the tough part about projecting safeties, you don't really know what's going to happen with Jaquan Brisker going into 2025 and then 2026 as well.
Yeah. Well, even if he comes back, you have to replace Kevin Byard, so you need one at least, or 2. So that's the tough part with 3 of these 4 is they have a safety in here, either Watts or Ransom. Yeah. So do you want to go to the next 4, or do you have any more on these 4?
Well, dude, I need to know, what are your thoughts on Isaiah Bond? Because the Bears are bringing these receivers into Halas Hall for these visits. You listed the depth chart there, they've got DJ Moore, Rome Odunze right now. Obviously, Zacchaeus is on there. Miles Boykin's on there. Tyler Scott's on there. Keenan Allen, by all accounts, at this point, I've accepted is just not coming back to the Bears. Doesn't really fit Ben Johnson's offense. So to me, I mean, if I were projecting that 72nd overall pick, I would say the Bears are going to add a receiver at some point in this draft. Well,
you also have to remember Keenan Allen's number is gone, 13. So he's probably for sure not coming back. I think Bond is because he transferred. He was at Alabama, right? Then he went to Texas, and Matthew Golden came there, and the last 4 or 5 games, Matthew Golden just went off, and Bond didn't really get there to that level. I think he's a little smaller, lacks a little strength. I think his, releases and routes aren't quite where they should be, but he's a good athlete. He talked up a big game. I don't think he really hit that big game in terms of the combine, running a huge number. But I think he's a good athlete. You see that, he has good change of direction ability, some good body control, some stuff after the reception. for a third round pick, I'd be in, as that maybe third receiver, which I think they need to develop that. Like, is Tyler Scott going to be that guy or not? Or do they have to get someone else new? I like Duvernay as a kick returner, maybe spot, receptions here or there. I like getting Zacchaeus, but you need to have the young guy develop in there. So I'm fine with him as the developmental guy. If you want with him in round 2, I would not be okay with it. Harold Fannin Jr. is interesting because he's only going to be a move tight end or a slot guy, and he's not going to be much of a blocker. He tested out really poorly. If people follow the NFL game a lot, you can look at Baltimore, who's had Mark Andrews for a while, and their backup, his name just is
Isaiah Likely.
Thank you. I cannot think of the name. That's a little bit of what Fanner reminds me of, but a lesser tier athlete, because Likely was a really fun prospect out of Coastal Carolina in terms of what he could do after the reception. He's really a mismatch. He arc blocked a bunch because they had a really fun option game there. But so Fannin put up crazy numbers. Him not winning the tight end of the year award at Bowling Green was insane. The numbers, the offense just ran through him. But he's slow, not a good athlete. He did it at Bowling Green. So I would not be as excited about him at 72. I'd be way more excited at Bond as adding like another weapon into this offense and for Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson.
It gets very, I think, interesting to me. And a lot of what you mentioned about Fannin Jr. are my concerns as well. All right, let's get to these final 4 here. Okay, we're going to have to kind of go through these because we got another meeting we got to be in for 10 minutes to plan for draft weekend. How about this one, dude? Okay, I'm looking. So here's the deal. Okay, we talked Genty, Williams, Kenneth Grant. We talked through Walter Nolan, Malachi Starks, Caleb Johnson. All right, obviously the 2 new ones. I mean, to me, if you're going Malachi Starks at 10, you fully believe that he is going to be a Kyle Hamilton type player for you, a Minka Fitzpatrick, Derwin James type player for you. Manor, I think that he can be a really solid sort of pickup as well. And then Barrett Carter, too, is a linebacker that I think is like Schwetzinger in a sense that he just keeps getting better as time is going on. But again, his best football is still in front of him, but he's a very experienced guy. I will say Manor, I'll learn how to say his name once he gets drafted, but whatever. Okay, so he's another, kind of fits to what you mentioned with Isaiah Pond, the wide receiver that, they have to go ahead and develop. And then obviously I think no one's going to be mad with a old school north-south runner like Cam Scatabo.
So, all right. This group has 2 of my favorite, I would say 4 of all the scenarios. Okay. My favorite one out of all of them is in this one. And it's 11. So Membo, who I didn't think would be there, Nolan. I like Watts because I think Watts can do all of it you want as a safety. Get him in the second round. And let's talk up Cam Scatabo, okay? So I was like, okay, this is a fun story. Arizona State, his film's fun. His contact balance, he gets extra yards. Really just think of like a David Montgomery type. He's a minus athlete, which sorry, y'all, David Montgomery was minus athlete, but helps in the return game or receiving game as a runner, etc. Bad pass block. We talked about this in the last episode. But you get him at 72 versus going running back earlier. So you're going trenches, helping safety, which we need 1 or 2, and running back. And then the other one I'll talk quickly. My second or third favorite out of all the scenarios is 10. So Genty, who I love, by the way, superstar. Tyleik Williams, I talked about before. Donovan Ezeraku, y'all. If you've not watched his film, pass rusher. Again, smaller. Okay. He's not going to be the every down end. Him and Austin Booker can be friends in terms of their size and maybe some, run defense stuff, but you need someone to get after the quarterback. That guy does it probably the 3rd best in the entire class. And you already mentioned Carter. So those are 2 of my favorite ones. The other ones I can see, but those 2 get me the most excited for the Bears.
Do you remember Danny Woodhead? He played for like the Jets, the Chargers, the Ravens.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So Scatabo to me is kind of your perfect, like, he to me is your crossover between like Danny Woodhead plus like a lesser version of a Ramondre Stevenson. Like that's the type of fun like prospect that he is. And so to me, I guess my biggest question, which I love Simulation 11, by the way, my biggest question though is Scatabo really sort of an option, knowing that the Bears are trying to get more explosive in the running game? So would you really add a guy that, complements DeAndre Swift pretty well, but doesn't complement Roschon Johnson well at all?
I'm gonna agree to disagree with you on this. I see Cam Scatabo as a James Conner like type prospect, where he came out of Pitt. A crazy story about it. He had cancer while he was there, survived it. Like James Conner's a guy I will always root for. Like it's amazing what he's overcome there. But like he was so tough, and you're like, how's that going to work in the league? And he's just like tougher than so many people. He's a good athlete, not a great athlete. But what Cam Scatabo does is he's always gaining yards that you don't think he should get because of his contact balance, his vision. I think he has good feet, and toughness. Like he wants the yard more than the defender wants to stop you getting the yard. Like that happens a lot. Now, again, I think he could have some injuries coming up, et cetera, too. But in terms of the Bears offense, the Bears need Cam Scatabo, the guy that's going to get the 4 yards when the 4 yards is there, versus Swift trying to bounce it and gets 2 yards instead of getting what's there. And then he might get an extra 50 yard because he's just going to turn his legs a little more. Like you need that part of the offense too to keep you on, ahead of the chains, versus kind of going for the home run all the time too. So I think you need both. I think, and again, get him at 72 is a good value versus spending 10, 39, or 41.
Yeah, it is. So really, like I said, I don't hate Scatabo as a prospect, but I kind of wonder, does he make sense for what the Bears are trying to do on offense? Okay. Does your guy as a Raku there at 41, does he make sense for you there? Or
oh my gosh.
Walk us through that, dude, because I like his film. I like what I saw. Obviously, I wrote a scouting report up on him. I'm just not, fully sure if, because of the crazy good athleticism, if he even makes it to 41. But again, the simulator knows all, right?
No, I'll tell people right now, they want to get like mock draft, you want to put it in your like a contest or something. I would like almost lock in Donovan Ezaraku to go into the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think he's going there. He's their type of guy. I don't know if he fits Dennis. Like everyone says this, he's not a Dennis Allen D end. I understand he's had bigger DNs, but are you only going to have big DNs? Like what if you want to move those guys in the D tackle on pass rushing downs and get some guys that are quicker on the edge? Like I don't know, but to me he would be a good offset to Dio and to Montez Sweat. So would Mike Green. You could maybe pencil in Princely, the guy for Ole Miss as well. But I would, if he fell to 41, I'd be crazy. From what I'm hearing, the hype, he's going to be mid first to maybe 22 at best.
That is going to make a very interesting thing. He's a lot like Leitu Latu from last year to me, yep. Who got drafted by the Colts. Like I see an exact same type of player. I see a combination of two Colts edge rushers, okay? I see the freaking motor and the physicality of Leitu Latu and Ezaraku, but then I see the athlete that Kwity Paye was and Josh Uche were when they were with Michigan. Like you take those two, you put them together, okay? Yeah. And that gives you Ezaraku. Anyways, we are going to go ahead. We're going to be coming back to this discussion here, okay? There's a lot of really good stuff here. And trust me, we're going to do this, draft week as well. We're going to run through one last, set of simulation, talk through the top 10 for you, except that time we're going to have a fresh set of simulations to kind of go over. If you're listening to this on the podcast version of it, head over to the YouTube channel to physically see what these simulations were, because we've been kind of screenshotting or screen sharing this whole thing this entire time. Make sure you're checking us out on Twitter at HalasBeat, at Usayd Kolshot _Nick Whalen. Check out Picks 4 Polls as well as the Bear Report podcast with Steven Johnson. Keep it locked into our website for draft coverage and so much more. Bear down. We will see you guys next time.